Hello everyone, I'm Wayne Forrest, features editor at OddMini.com, and we are in Anaheim, California at the annual meeting of the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging. Thank you for joining us today, and our very special guest is Dr. Barry Siegel, Professor of Radiology at Washington University in St. Louis. And Dr. Siegel, thank you for joining us. It's our pleasure.
Glad to be here.
This is the first year of the Dr. Barry Siegel lecture series, and I want to ask you a little bit about that. How did it come to be?
Well, the Correlative Imaging Council of the Society decided that they wanted to fund an annual lecture, and I was thrilled that they chose to invite me to give a lecture that they've named after me. I also was exceedingly pleased that it was not the Barry Siegel Memorial Lecture.
That's a good thing. And you also had the honor of giving the first speech, first address today.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that topic.
Well, so I spoke about the history of PET reimbursement, particularly by Medicare, focusing on the work that was done by the National Oncologic PET Registry and subsequently by the IDEA study, and then kind of wrapped up with what I thought were the really important issues facing the nuclear medicine community with the way Medicare in particular handles the reimbursement of PET.
Let's delve into that a little bit. What's the current situation? And from what I gather, there's certainly room for improvement.
There's definitely room for improvement. So now for a very long time, the reimbursement of PET by Medicare, unlike its reimbursement of other diagnostic tests, has been governed by an NCD, National Coverage Determination, that specifically says this is what we cover, and if it's not included, we don't cover it. In other words, there's an exclusionary policy. And although one, I think, could make the argument that 20 years ago, when PET was still in its infancy as a clinical procedure, when radiopharmaceuticals were being made only by universities, that it was a cottage industry, and maybe that mode of reimbursement made sense, but PET has grown up now. It's no longer a cottage industry. It's widespread throughout the country, and really it no longer needs to be regulated this way. The exclusionary policy should be lifted, and PET should be covered at Medicare contractor discretion, just like every other form of diagnostic imaging.
Certainly the registry had a big role in trying to get CMS to reimburse the sodium fluoride PET scans. Not successful in that case. I certainly hope that that battle has not ended yet. Is there any chance that it might be resurrected?
No immediate chance to resurrect sodium fluoride, just because Medicare seems to be really quite non-responsive to it. But maybe if Medicare changes its overall thinking to the way it handles PET, there might be a chance to get sodium fluoride back in the groove again. The other big problem I talked about this afternoon was the way Medicare reimburses for new PET radiopharmaceuticals. So when a new radiopharmaceutical is approved by the FDA, there's a period that's referred to as pass-through that lasts for perhaps 2 to 3 years, during which the sponsor of the new drug, and most new PET radiopharmaceuticals are expensive. The older ones are they're relatively inexpensive. They've been commoditized. These new drugs are more expensive. There's an agreement that hospitals get paid the amount that Medicare has agreed in its discussions with the sponsor is a fair price for the drug, but that period lasts 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. When the period ends, when pass-through is over, now the payment to a hospital for a PET procedure is a bundle payment that includes the radiopharmaceutical, and you get paid the same amount whether the radiopharmaceutical costs $100 or $5,000. And the payment is only currently about $1,370. Mm-hmm. So that means hospitals have little incentive to keep doing the procedure, and it also means that the lack of surety for the industry that they'll have a continuing way to sell their product means that they lose an incentive to enter this industry. And I think that's a serious problem. The industry, the nuclear medicine industry, if you will, in conjunction with the Society of Nuclear Medicine, is pursuing the introduction of a bill in the House that would force Medicare to change the way it pays for pet radiopharmaceuticals, and I'm very hopeful that that will move forward.
So often it does come down to economics, though, doesn't it? When you try to do reimbursement and balance that with appropriate health care for patients.
Absolutely.
All right. Our special guest today, Dr. Barry Siegel. No doubt we'll be hearing more about these topics in the future. Dr. Siegel, thank you again for joining us today. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. Glad to be here.